Ghana rewrote the rules. They dared to challenge the conventional wisdom. The world wrote off the Cedi, branding it a failed currency, symptomatic of a struggling nation seemingly trapped in a cycle of debt and despair. The narrative was bleak, the prognosis grim. International headlines predicted complete economic collapse, painting a picture of inevitable doom. And financial experts offered their usual advice, the same prescriptions that had seemingly failed time and again. Their solutions felt detached from the realities on the ground. But Ghana stopped listening to the old song, the tired tune of dependency and external control. The nation looked inward, to its own resources, to the potential that lay dormant within its borders. Especially its gold, a treasure buried beneath its soil, a symbol of its inherent wealth. This isn't a story about bailouts or charity, handouts or external saviors. It's about a country rediscovering its strength, reclaiming its narrative, and choosing a new path, a path forged in self-reliance. Ghana's leaders decided to trust their own gold over foreign aid, betting on their own capabilities rather than succumbing to external pressures. They chose self-reliance, forging a lifeline from their own soil, a golden cord to pull themselves up. The journey began in desperation, amidst the throes of economic hardship, but it was fueled by a burning desire for true independence, a yearning to break free from the shackles of debt. For too long, Ghana's fate was tied to systems it didn't control, vulnerable to the whims of global finance. The crisis of 2022 forced a reckoning, a moment of truth that demanded bold action, and demanded a new vision, a departure from the status quo. The old ways had failed. The promises of the global financial system were hollow, leaving Ghana disillusioned and seeking an alternative. Ghana made a bold choice, a decision that would reverberate across the continent, to back its economy with gold, not borrowed dollars, a tangible asset rather than relying on fluctuating foreign currencies. This is the story of the Cedi's fall and spectacular rise, a phoenix from the ashes. It's about how gold gave Ghana a new voice on the world stage, a newfound respect and influence. More than a financial report, it's a blueprint for nations seeking freedom from economic chains, a testament to the power of self-determination and resourcefulness. Ghana's gold, dug from African soil by African hands, bought back its economic freedom, paving the way for a brighter future. And it all started in the darkest of days, when hope seemed lost. The world doubted, but Ghana believed in its own potential. This is a story of economic destiny reclaimed, a narrative of resilience and innovation. A modern African nation showing that true power comes from within, from harnessing its own resources and ingenuity. The journey was not simple, fraught with challenges, but it was necessary, a vital step towards self-sufficiency. Ghana's leaders made a choice to believe in their own wealth, to trust in the riches beneath their feet. This is the story of how a nation's pride was restored, how a people rediscovered their inherent value. And it began when the world had written Ghana off, when all seemed lost, proving that even in the face of adversity, a nation can rise again. 2022 was a year of immense challenges for Ghana, a period etched in the nation's memory. The country faced a confluence of economic headwinds that threatened its stability and the livelihoods of its citizens. The Cedi, Ghana's currency, experienced a dramatic and destabilizing crash, losing over half its value against the US dollar in a stunning freefall. This rapid devaluation sent shockwaves through the economy. This wasn't just abstract numbers on a screen, it translated into real hardship for Ghanaian families. People watched in dismay as their hard-earned savings vanished, eroded by the relentless decline of the Cedi. And as the currency plummeted, prices soared across the board, making everyday goods increasingly unaffordable for ordinary citizens. Inflation became a harsh reality. The economic uncertainty triggered a flight of capital, as investors, both domestic and foreign, fled the country in search of safer havens. Compounding the crisis, Ghana's debt was downgraded to junk status by international credit rating agencies, further undermining confidence in the nation's financial stability. The nation's treasury was stretched to its limits, nearly empty and struggling to meet its obligations, including paying for essential imports needed to keep the economy functioning. On trading floors, panic reigned supreme. Anxious traders watched helplessly as the Cedi's decline seemed unstoppable, creating a climate of fear and uncertainty. The Bank of Ghana's attempts to stabilize the currency through various interventions proved largely ineffective, failing to stem the tide of devaluation. As the economic situation deteriorated, a palpable sense of anxiety gripped the entire country, casting a shadow over daily life. People lined up for hours at banks, desperate to exchange their rapidly depreciating Cedis for the relative stability of US dollars, seeking to protect what little savings they had left. The very foundations of the economic structure seemed to be cracking, ready to collapse under the weight of the crisis. The seemingly inevitable solution, as prescribed by the international financial community, was to turn to the IMF for a bailout, a move that would inevitably come with harsh austerity measures. But within the corridors of power in Accra, a new and unconventional idea was beginning to take shape, a potential path away from traditional solutions. Ghana would leverage its own natural resources, specifically its abundant gold reserves, to fight back against the economic crisis. This was not a conventional response, but a radical and audacious plan, deeply rooted in Ghana's national identity and its rich history as a gold-producing nation. The nation, driven by a sense of urgency and determination, was ready to try something bold, something that no one expected. The severity of the crisis forced Ghana to look inward, to explore domestic solutions and leverage its own resources to chart a new course. From afar, the world saw a country seemingly in freefall, spiraling towards economic disaster. But within Ghana, the crisis was viewed as an opportunity, a chance to rewrite its story and forge a more resilient and independent economic future. To understand the multifaceted crisis that gripped Ghana in 2022, we need to delve into the past. We must look back to Ghana's colonial past, to the very foundations upon which its modern economy was built. The economy was structured for resource extraction, designed to benefit external powers, not to foster local strength or resilience. Ghana produced cocoa, a commodity that became synonymous with its identity, and gold, a precious metal that has been mined in the region for centuries. But the crucial aspect was that trade was almost always conducted in foreign currencies, primarily the British pound, creating a lasting dependence. This deep-seated dependency made the economy inherently fragile, particularly when it came to the critical energy sector. Despite the fact that Ghana is an oil producer in its own right, Ghana still heavily relied on imported refined fuel, and crucially, these imports had to be paid for in US dollars. Therefore, when the Ghanaian Cedi weakened against the dollar, fuel prices inevitably soared, rapidly driving up overall inflation. The nation's financial health became inextricably linked and vulnerable to the fluctuations of global markets. Then came the unprecedented global disruption of COVID-19, swiftly followed by the devastating war in Ukraine, sending commodity prices on a steep upward trajectory, skyrocketing to levels unseen in years. The demand for US dollars intensified, becoming almost insatiable and ultimately shattering any semblance of economic balance. The 2022 crisis was, in essence, a perfect storm, a collision of the long shadow of colonial legacy and a series of unforeseen, modern global shocks. The system, already weakened, was designed to be fragile, and under the immense pressure, it finally broke. The international community often blamed mismanagement, but the underlying reality was far deeper and more complex. Ghana was essentially trapped by a set of rules that it had no hand in writing. To truly survive and thrive, Ghana realized it had to fundamentally break free from the old model and forge a new path. With reserves nearly gone, Ghana stunned the world. Instead of begging the IMF, it launched the Gold for Oil program. The plan: use gold to buy fuel, bypassing the US dollar. Mining companies were required to sell 20% of refined gold to the Bank of Ghana. For the first time, Ghana's gold stayed home, protecting its economy. Gold reserves surged by 40% in a year, building a buffer against currency volatility. Ghana began paying for oil imports directly with gold. This ancient form of trade became a modern solution. The gold for oil strategy was more than policy. It was a declaration of independence. Ghana was taking control of its destiny. The gold for oil policy, boosted by soaring gold prices, changed everything. By mid-2025, gold hit $3,400 an ounce, swelling Ghana's reserves. Export earnings soared and the Cedi's decline reversed. The currency rallied, appreciating 40% against the dollar, becoming the world's best performer. The world watched in disbelief as Ghana's fortunes turned. On the streets, pride replaced despair. Businesses and vendors trusted the Cedi again. Inflation eased, and imported goods stabilized. The Cedi became a symbol of resilience and national pride. International headlines celebrated the Ghanaian miracle. Ghana was no longer a cautionary tale, but an inspiration. The nation had used its own resources and ingenuity to pull back from the brink. The Cedi's comeback proved a new path was possible. It was a victory for economic self-determination. Even with gold for oil success, Ghana needed to restructure its debts. In 2023, officials negotiated with the IMF, but this time with leverage. Ghana's gold reserves gave it confidence and alternatives. No longer desperate, Ghana pushed for a deal that protected its people. The IMF had to compromise, respecting Ghana's sovereignty. The final agreement was a landmark support on Ghana's terms. Ghana proved a resource-backed plan meant negotiating from strength. The gold reserves did more than save the Cedi. They bought Ghana a seat at the table. The nation charted its own course, free from the harshest demands. It was a lesson for Africa. Your resources are your greatest leverage. Ghana's independence was now real. Investors who fled Ghana in 2022 scrambled to return. The Cedi's stability and gold-backed plan restored confidence. Ghana's Eurobonds soared, borrowing costs fell, and the country's reputation transformed. The world studied the Ghana model with awe. The Diaspora sent record remittances, proud of a currency they could trust. This new wave of funds further strengthened the Cedi. Ghana's comeback became a source of national and global pride. It showed African solutions could solve African problems. The turnaround was about more than money. It was about dignity. Investors learned not to underestimate Ghana's resilience. Ghana's success inspired Africa. Leaders saw a blueprint for breaking the cycle of dependency. The gold for oil strategy became a model for resource-backed sovereignty. Countries like Nigeria and Kenya began to study Ghana's approach. The idea of using gold as a foundation for regional trade gained momentum. Pan-African solidarity became a real economic strategy. Ghana's journey was a rallying cry for self-reliance. The Cedi's comeback lit a beacon for the continent. Ghana's Cedi comeback is a lesson in power and dignity. True sovereignty is built, not given. Ghana's gold now powers its currency, not global markets. The nation must manage new risks, but the principle is set. Africa doesn't need to beg, it needs to build. Ghana's story rebukes the old narrative of helplessness. The solution lies within Africa's resources and people. This is more than a currency recovery, it's sovereignty, minted in metal. Ghana's gold is its heartbeat and its currency is strong. This is a new beginning, and this is Insight Africa, where the continent writes its own future.